Welcome, guys, to the new How to Break into Cybersecurity series episode. Today with us, we have Lawrence Wilkins, and we will cover his journey into cybersecurity. First of all, welcome on board, Lawrence.
Thank you, Marius, for having me.
So, Lawrence, you just landed a role in cybersecurity. Obviously, you went through a path, to reskilling from electrician into cybersecurity. So, first of all, I wanted to just address and pick your brains. Why cybersecurity? What led you to pursue a career in cybersecurity?
I guess I've always been interested in technology as a whole from just a very young age. When I was very young, I was always messing around like on Notepad trying to create websites. And then when I was about 13, me and my friend actually created a website to host our own radio show, and we had about 50 concurrent listeners just for a small online game that we played. And then when I was in secondary school, the same friends, we would actually go on to like the command prompts on the school system and just, first go on Google, find little commands that we could use, and then just explore their network. And to be fair, like looking back at it now, I'm quite surprised just the lack of security measures that they had in place. Because we could like just go in anywhere basically. But why I pursued it, I just feel like I believe like everyone has a right to privacy. And I guess I'm always eager to help people. Like in my previous role, I was always trying to help people, and I'd always stay that extra hour if I need to, just to get the work done. And then I was seized an opportunity to do a cybersecurity boot camp with Capslock. So I just took it, and I just feel like it just aligns with my moral compass really, and I've not looked back since.
Okay, brilliant. I guess in the industry, there's various obviously views on boot camps. There's few routes that people can take. Some people take self-learning path and try and find their way of breaking into cybersecurity. You obviously took a boot camp path. How did you find Capslock, first of all, and then secondly, did you do your own specific research? Because there is we've seen various kind of boot camps, and some of them have successes, and some of them obviously been a disappointment, and some people were as not successful getting into cybersecurity. So, what was your view? How did you find Capslock? How what sort of confirmation did you seek from any reviews, or how did you go about it?
Well, for me, Capslock has been great. It's really helped me like push me in the right direction. There's been quite a few nice surprises as well. Like I didn't realize that we was going to have a careers team that's going to be helping us throughout the whole course. I didn't realize we were going to have been having like mentoring sessions as well. So I found Capslock through my sister, because my sister knows that I've always been into computers, and I was like looking to change my career. And she knows people kind of within this field, and they actually suggested that I'd have a look at Capslock. And then when I looked into them as well, that I think they're government funded, and I think they've also been like promoted by like BBC or something like that as well. So I thought, well, they've got to be legit as well. It can't be just like one of these like ones that are like a pop-up shop and then they just disappear once they've got your money type of thing and that. But yeah, they've been absolutely great, really. With the self-learning, I did have a go at self-learning, but just trying to find the right path to go down and everything as well was a bit confusing, because cybersecurity is such a vast landscape. So looking at like just watching some YouTube videos and just looking at some articles and everything online, it was quite difficult really to know what path to go down and then what certificates to get, because some people say, oh, get the CompTIA Security Plus certificate. This is great to get into the industry. And then the next video on the recommended is, don't get this certificate and stuff like that. It's a waste of money and stuff. So it was very conflicting and confusing, really. So having that structured course as well, like for me, it just made me hone in on what to do and just gave me a clear direction, really.
Yeah, I think the main problem we currently have in the industry, there's so many experts on the path into cybersecurity, and the problem we have is most of the people, especially the ones who go through self sort of learning journey, there is no right path. There is no single path. There is various paths that you can potentially explore, and people have successes in various ways. So it can be daunting, and as you say, it's very conflicting, the different information that you see. So I guess I wanted to go back into, so obviously you found the Capslock course, but before you went into the course, what thoughts or sort of my misconceptions you might have had about the industry, about cybersecurity, that changed once you started doing the course?
Well, first, I believe it is cybersecurity is very important. Just the way everything's like kind of changing, So I believe like cybersecurity as a whole needs to be like the central part of the development of any digital age. The evolution of like cybersecurity threats has vastly changed as well. So it's a bit different from just a few guys sitting in their basement, just making a few viruses just to be inconvenience to people. So yeah, it's a lot different now. Like the I believe like not that many people realize as well, like there's so many like well-funded organizations with very deep pockets in this field, and if they want to be persistent, they will be persistent and kind of get what they want. So I guess for us just to kind of be proactive in our measures and just stay one step ahead of the game, it's kind of like all we can do. There's always going to be 0-day threats and everything, but if we can negate most of that, um, yeah, I believe that's all the best that we kind of can do, really. So, um, yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions as well. Just like security is just a hindrance in some ways, and they find it annoying, even just like doing multi-factor authentication and stuff. Some people find that as a bit of an inconvenience. So it's just trying to, I don't know, it's very difficult, really. I guess trying to implement security where it's not really going to hinder the customer so much as well. Because say there's a lot of people just, oh no, we've got to do this again. Oh, like it's just like when you go for an airport, oh, we've got to do the passport checks and all that. It's like, well, you have to do it for obvious
Yeah.
reasons.
I think the big part in it is when you build and gain experience, it's about understanding and educate. I think the education is the big piece, because if you can, especially I think for once you go into things like awareness training for staff, if you can relate specific topics to their personal life and explain, and that's where the key point is, when you gain experience you start getting to the point where you can explain the reasons for doing some things, because obviously loads of people say, oh yeah, MFA, as you mentioned, is a hindrance, but if you can relate to the problem where potentially somebody in their family or some of their friends had a problem where MFA could have helped or could have prevented specific, fraud situations, phishing, spam, when you can connect those two issues, that potentially can, help tremendously people. I guess the one thing I wanted to pick up as well. So we touched a bit on misconceptions and the views that you might have had before you gone into the industry. Once you went into the course, and you started to understand a bit more about security, how does your view shaped, because obviously loads of people have ideas, and we've seen movies about hackers, about cybersecurity. It's very different world until you actually are in it. So how does your view change, during the course when you started to learn about different disciplines in cybersecurity, different career paths? How did you find that?
Well, yeah, just like you said about the movies and stuff. That was my view on how it kind of was. You kind of watch some guy who's like, oh, he's the top guy in the CIA and he can like hack anything. And then when they're trying to find the bad guy, he just like spams the keyboard for a little bit, and all of a sudden there he is. He's on the screen and they're tracking him in real time, and they're controlling all the doors, shutting them in front of them, and turning the lights on and off, and setting up traps and stuff. Which is, yeah, obviously very unrealistic. But yeah, it's going through through this journey and stuff as well, and just the different pathways and everything you can go down. Yeah, it's very very different from the movies. Say like you got you go down the route of the penetration testers, or you go like blue teaming, just like, you know, the security analysts and that as well. And in a way, like you're within the whole realm of cybersecurity, like your path is quite niche type of thing, but it's so in depth as well. So like, yeah, you just got to hone in on that one particular thing, really. And it's not how the movies make it out, of course, but it's exciting in its own way, though. And especially like for me, I want to go down the analyst route. It is a form of, you know, obviously investigation and that as well. And I just find that like very fun, being able to try and like piece the puzzles together, um, and try and make a whole picture of kind of like what's going on, and hopefully finding whoever's trying to, you know, maybe breach the systems or something.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. And you know, I think we touched through sort of mentoring classes. I wanted to pick your brains about, you know, when you go into the boot camp, or, you know, or any specific sort of, you know, even if you're doing a self sort of training course, there's a lot of things flying at you. You know, every week you're learning new subjects, and some of them you're skimming through, and then I think if sort of week 2 or 3 or whichever week, there is a dawning sort of idea of how we're going to learn all of that, and then sort of imposter syndrome sets in, and like, how are we going to be able to do that? So how did you, you know, battle that, and what helped you to overcome that?
Well, with the course I was on, it was quite refreshing in a way. So we was in a I was put into a group of 6 of us, and we had all unrelated backgrounds to cybersecurity and that. So at first we was all kind of in the same boat, which is kind of nice to be in sometimes as well. And then, but then as the course went on for like 2 or 3 weeks, we went from zero knowledge about it to now we're actually having conversations about certain topics and stuff. And like just from a couple of weeks ago, we would have thought, no, we'd never be talking about this and stuff. And it was just like, it was quite natural just to start speaking about, say, like X amount of topics and that as well. So that really did help, like instill some confidence. Like obviously, I know the journey through cybersecurity is a very long journey. It's continuous. You'll never ever know everything. It's just rapidly developing, like we can see in the past like 20 years, just like where it's, you know, from then where it is now is it's ridiculous. So I just with this to help imposter syndrome, I feel like as long as you understand the fundamentals and you kind of build upon that foundation, that really kind of really helps, really, because when you just know the basics, and then once something new kind of comes out, you already know some things about it, and you can start to actually, yeah, just like pull things together and all that as well. And when you read, oh yeah, I know this, and just like you start pulling it all together, and it starts to make a hell of a lot more sense, as opposed to just having zero knowledge and then just trying to dive deep into one subject. It's just like, yeah, mind-boggling. It's like a mechanic. It's like someone who's never worked on a car, and they just open up the hood of a car, and they're like, where do I even start?
Yeah. Do you feel that, you know, having a sort of a group setting, whereas people are around you who are in the same boat and going through the same journey, and you can bounce ideas and sharing knowledge, helps you sort of build confidence and go into that journey, sort of be more confident in your own abilities?
Yeah, I think it does help, because when you're kind of, if you're just kind of thrown in the deep end with people who have really deep knowledge on the subject, you just kind of feel very small next to them as well, and you don't want to say anything, because if you say something wrong, you feel like an idiot. Whereas if you've got everyone else who's like on the same like level as you, and you say something wrong and all that, it doesn't feel too bad. And then you like, you know, like 90% of you might all think that one way, and then that other 10% is like, oh no, I think this is actually the way you do it. And then you all research together, and oh, you are right actually, and stuff as well. And it's just like, it kind of just, yeah, you kind of all bring yourself up together, and it's a lot less intimidating, I'd say.
Yeah, brilliant. You know, I wanted to touch a bit about skills. Obviously, you come from, you know, different path in being an electrician before. So do you believe that you had particular, whether it's hard or soft skills that help you in your cybersecurity, I mean, journey into cybersecurity? And if so, what are those skills and how do you believe they, they helped you from, previous, working life experiences?
Well, yes, being as an electrician, I would have only would have thought, yeah, those skills would only translate over to other trades, say like being a plumber or anything as such in that. But then when you kind of like look at it through a different lens, then you do gain a different perspective, and you're like, actually, yeah, these skills that I've acquired over for me 14 years really does like transfer over into cybersecurity. So like some of them, go from I had to liaise with clients like on the regular. I had to work under pressure quite a lot. I had to have critical thinking. I had to be very methodical. Had to collaborate with other contractors. Sometimes I actually had to like lead a small group of people as well. Yeah, and I think that like there's many more that I could list and stuff. And yeah, it really does help really because the cybersecurity there's so many paths that you can go down. Um, and those skills can transfer everywhere really. And once you realize like you have those skills actually does help facilitate a smoother transition into cybersecurity.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to touch, I think lots of people do not understand how, yes, you can do a boot camp, you can do a self sort of path training into cybersecurity, but the journey itself is not something that, some of the marketing jargon say, oh, do this boot camp and you secure this role that gives you a, 100 grand minimum salary. The road is not all that laid on sort of with roses. People don't miscomprehend sometimes how much extra effort sometimes and extra time you have to put in away from the course. So, how did you go about, upskilling yourself and building skills and technical knowledge outside of the course? How did you tackle that sort of personal development journey?
Well, so Capslock was 6 hours basically a day going through that. And then we'd also get like homework or pre-reading to do, and then that can take a couple hours as well. So by the time you kind of do everything else in your personal life, you've only kind of got like a few hours left in the day. And it's just how you want to allocate your time and just how serious you are just to learn really. So for me, every single night, uh, I went on to try hack me, and minimum I would at least do half hour every single night, regardless of how I felt. 7 days a week. I'd even be in bed sometimes and that as well, and just like, oh, I'll just get the laptop out quickly and that, and I'll just do a bit and that as well. And yeah, it's difficult really because everyone's got a different path and a different journey to go down. But for me, I just feel like what works for my strengths is like I can kind of, regardless of how I feel, if I need to get something done, I will just do it because I know I'll feel better the next day afterwards. And on top of that, it, yeah, it's a difficult one really, in the sense of like in a broad sense for everyone. But for me, it was just just to show my commitment really to just continuous learning.
Yeah, I think one thing sometimes that I guess sometimes can separate people in the industry is once you get going, you sort of build a discipline and a habit to showing up no matter what. Because the thing is, I think, most of us heard the saying, it's better to, like, if you talk something like gym, it's better go even when you're feeling down, just to go and do something than don't do anything. So I think goes the same sort of path. If you are on that journey, just doing a little bit when you can is better than doing nothing. Because the problem I think people sometimes have, obviously, it can be a weekend or something, or whatever evening is like, just do it tomorrow. And the thing is, tomorrow becomes your own sort of internal battle and excuse saying, oh, I'll just keep doing it tomorrow. And then the problem sometimes has tomorrow never happens. So I guess, it's a great way to sort of building discipline and desire. I think sometimes even, as you say, yes, loads of people saying, yes, I have a 1% sort of try hack me is a sort of becomes a common denominator now, but building streaks and showing commitment is probably another tangible way we can look at some of the junior talent. So I guess, if we go back to sort of closer to the end of the journey, so you've been on a course, you're close to finishing the course, and then it's time to sort of start pursuing, roles, looking where you can find stuff. How did you go about to crafting CV to showcase your, translation skills? What kind of tips you would share, or you think something that worked for yourself you would suggest to some other people?
Well, first off, like your LinkedIn is a part of your CV as well. So like, I feel like people do forget that, and then they'll like want to update their CV, but then they post to put their LinkedIn on it, but then their LinkedIn doesn't show anything. And one of the pieces of advice that I've got through quite a few people is like you want to kind of document your journey. So that was another thing I've done with like the Try Hack Me, is just like every time I would like maybe complete a lab or reach a certain milestone. Like when I hit 100 days, 100-day streak on Try Hack Me, I felt like it was like quite a good milestone. I would post it online onto LinkedIn, and it received like quite good feedback and everything. So just doing something like that as well, just kind of setting yourself apart, doing something slightly different from everyone else, because everyone's like, say like on the Capslock, it's kind of doing the same journey. So if you could just make yourself just stand out a little bit by just there's so many different avenues you can go down. So like the way I done it, I feel like that really did help. In terms of like creating my CV though, I hadn't created a CV since I was 16, and that was when
Yeah.
I was just like, as soon as I left school, I was like, oh, let's try and get a job in JD Sports or something, and just like looking back now, I can just imagine how terrible that CV would have been. But then you know, I've never had to go through an interview process or write a CV because I've worked in a family-run company. So like that is completely new to me. But thankfully, this is another good point about being on a boot camp. Like if you're in my shoes, is like this particular one. They had a careers team, and they offered you like guidance on your CV. And I think for me, it must have been like literally the beginning of week 2. I'm already sending them so many different versions of a CV that I've wrote up and I don't think they're actually expecting anyone to give you your CV until about week 10. I was just like so eager. I was like, I need to get a job, and that was like obviously priority number one. And I actually absolutely bombarded them for ages with different CVs and stuff, like always asking questions. And then I just got to a point where I was like, I feel comfortable with this now. I've had, plenty of reassurance, I guess, with just asking about my CV. But then also as well, on top of that, whilst waiting for them to respond, I'd also go online and I'd search for like templates and just see what other people have done. And I'd also, like, I never heard of an ATS before, so I was like researching what an ATS is, what are the keywords and stuff, and then realizing, oh, okay, one of the best ways to do it is when you find a job description, you want to read through it, see what all like things they're actually looking for, and right, these are the keywords and everything like that. Have I actually done it? You don't want to lie on your CV either. Have I actually done this? Okay, put that in your CV to the way they've worded it as well, because that's obviously what they're looking for. And then also as well, like to help with my CV. So we had the mentoring sessions, and that was great because like I would ask so many questions every week. Like we'd have an hour session, and then so yeah, every time I'd already have a list of questions that I'd want to ask, and that like played a massive role as well as like to helping me laying out my CV, what I'm going to put in my CV, just yeah, it create like all those things, just like just all together, just created a massive impact on just how I can pursue it, how just the whole layout of my CV, everything.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on the mentoring part. I guess the big part of, the Capslock journey is having a weekly calls with your mentors, and then obviously it starts about, learning about each other, and then bringing sort of, guest speakers from around the industry, and learning about, their particular journeys, as well as what it is working day to day in specific role. So how do you feel having a mentor, around for those 16 weeks has helped you on the path, and potentially, increase the chances of getting a role, or, increase the probably the learning curve, as well as, make the course easier for you? How does that all help you?
Well, it was a nice addition, really. It was quite a big surprise. Like, I've always been into like personal development, and listen to certain audio books and stuff like that. And when you listen to like successful people, they always say one of the major things that you want to do in life is find a mentor, and that as well. So then when we was actually presented with that, I was like, oh wow, this is like quite amazing. And that that's why I was just like, I'll just take this opportunity to the fullest. And it just, I don't know, it just, being able to like speak with someone who's already like, they're actually giving up their time to speak to you for an hour, and you can just pick their brain, ask them anything, and that as well. And not many people have that opportunity, really. Like, so to have that was just like, yeah, I'm taking that 100%. Um, and as well, like, because then the mentors will not only say from their experiences and stuff, they know people in the industry, so then they would actually, okay, so what do you want to be? I want to be an cybersecurity analyst. Oh, okay, what do you want to be? Oh, I want to do GRC. Okay, well, I'll schedule these people in the next coming weeks and stuff, and then so you can ask them questions as well, because they're actually in that field right now. And yeah, just being able to like speak with people from all different sectors and everything, that was great, really. And also as well, having a mentor that also had been on the Capslock course prior, and that as well, and you can kind of see their transition and everything as well. It's just like, yeah, it kind of made you, well, made me anyway, like a bit less intimidated, really. Like, yeah, just so you know, you can actually do this. Like, say, with the whole imposter syndrome, especially at the beginning. Yeah, it just played a massive part, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. I wanted to pick up on roles. We talked a bit about, hackers and movies and things like that. I wanted to understand, how did mentoring and talking to people in the industry, and actually understanding what the role is, day-to-day work, and understanding that hacking is not what is showed up in the movies, how did that allow you to focus and pick the path outside when you finish, the caps lock, and sort of focus into, because when we had the first few weeks discussions, people have different ideas of where they want to go. And I think towards sort of the end, most of the people's paths have changed. What do you believe led that, and how does that help you to actually focus on where you want to go to, in the hopes of being more successful?
Yeah, so for me personally, I was like, say from watching all the movies and stuff like that, I was like, oh, I want to be a penetration tester. That just seems the most exciting and everything as well. And then when I get told, oh, well, being a penetration tester, it's about like 80% paperwork and about 20% actually doing the penetration testing, I was like, okay, well, I didn't really want to get into a role where I'm just doing paperwork. I know every role will have paperwork. So I was like, oh, okay. So I had to ask, what other roles are there? And also, what's kind of the easiest way to get into the industry, learn the foundations, and then pivot somewhere else. And then that's, when I had that discussion to actually become a security analyst. And then when I started to like sit back and think about it, I was like, actually, from if I wasn't going to do like cybersecurity, one of the jobs that I always said I would absolutely love to do is be a private investigator, or something along those lines. And I was like, that actually kind of fits the role as well, because like I'm having to like look out for all the clues, and then to say like piece the puzzle together and stuff as well. So I was like, actually, penetration testing may not have been the one, because as well when I done had to do the OWASP juice shop at one point in the boot camp, and it was like, yeah, it was fun. I did enjoy it, but it was very like basic, obviously. But it was like, it just felt like I'm just copy and pasting commands in and just trying to just throw everything at the wall and just see what sticks. And I was like, oh, okay. As opposed to, from what I see, going on Wireshark or other various programs, and I'm actually like investigating things. I just felt like that kind of sung to me more. So like having the mentoring, I don't know if I would have seen it from that angle at first. I probably would have still tried to pursue penetration testing, I think. And so having those discussions and actually finding out in the real world what they actually do definitely helped change my mind for the better as well.
Yeah. So we talked a bit about, you had obviously careers team to help you prepare for, your CV, for interviews. How do you think, what helped you the best to prepare for interviews? Because interviews can be, very different depending on who you're interviewing with, but having confidence and, preparation, I guess, preparation is key to everything. But how did you tackle about preparing for an interviews? Did you have a specific questions that you practice, or specific, research that you've done? How did you go about, preparing for your interviews?
So, well, I've never had an interview in my life, so that was quite a scary thing to be like, oh no, now I've got to do the interviews. What are they going to ask me and stuff. So I started speaking with the careers team, and they'd set aside some time so I could actually speak with them. They would give like mock interviews. They'd also just kind of just want to speak to me on just a general level as well, just to see if I was like fairly confident enough to be able to just speak in an interview and stuff. And then they'd also give me some like generic questions that to me like blew my mind, because every question that they asked me to write down did come up in interviews and that as well. And like, say like one of them was just name a difficult time that you had. Name a time that you had to work with a difficult colleague and how you overcome that. That was like one of the questions I got asked. And it was just like, we just had to write all these questions down, and you kind of rehearse them just so like you are prepared for when the interviewer does ask you those questions. I'd also do a little bit of research. There was like an audio book, I can't remember the name of it now. I did listen to it. It was only a short one, just about just how you want to come across when doing an interview. And I found as well, it's like you can overthink it. The probably the most important thing that I can say is just like showcasing your personality and your enthusiasm. Because if your personality doesn't come across and you just, oh yeah, you kind of just like, you're not showing that you're enthusiastic about actually pursuing this role and everything. I feel like you can answer all the questions great, but if you're not showing that passion for it, that can play like a factor. So and I kind of feel like that something like that can help set you apart from the other people that are getting interviewed.
Yeah, I think especially nowadays, because obviously, pre-COVID, most of the interviews used to be face to face, and obviously now you're doing over Zoom, over Teams, and I think people can find it sometimes more difficult to show the passion. But I guess practice is the key. Having someone, to help you, whether it's careers team, whether it's a mentor, to do some mock, interviews, will be a great sort of skill to prepare yourself. And I guess, you've done brilliantly. You came out on the other end with a role, So I guess, lastly, I wanted to ask, to our audience, who are potentially at the beginning of the journey, or maybe they're looking for whether to do a boot camp, maybe they are researching their own path into cybersecurity. What a few key tips you would share with the audience that helped you to get to where you are?
I think you just got to kind of understand what like the reasons why. Like you got to kind of like look a bit deep within, why are you doing this? Like, is it just for monetary gains? Is it are you doing it for your family? You know, there could be a whole array of different questions that you can ask yourself, and just try and find the answers, really. So I feel like once you've kind of had that conversation with yourself, and you're set, and you're like, right, okay, this is actually what I want to do. Say, like, you know, ethically, this kind of all aligns with your like moral compass and everything. Then I believe, like, then you want to stay hungry and that as well. Like, you really want to just like chase after it. You want to like pursue your goals. But you've also got to be very open-minded and open to like new experiences, and don't be afraid of like just trying something new. I know it can seem very, very like daunting at first and that, but like, you just try it. There's not a lot that can go wrong. Especially as well, like, I always used to be scared of going on the command prompt and typing something wrong in, and I'm, oh, I'm going to break my computer. Well, you know, you can use virtual machines now, and then you know, if you do anything wrong, just turn it off and turn it back on again. It's not going to brick your computer, you know. So I know the unknown is initially very, very scary, but then once it becomes the known, then it's a hell of a lot less intimidating, and you kind of look back at yourself like, why was I even scared of doing that at all? um you know, you're gonna fail, and that like you're not ever gonna be 100% right at something, and that you're gonna like stumble and stuff, but like showing your resilience, I think kind of just shows a testament to your character. um and yeah, you just got to chase after it, really. I think that's the biggest key point, and that just be disciplined, be determined, and just go for it, really.
Yeah, and I think we are at this age where people have access to information like never before. And I think in that sense is a big benefit. So I think for people, doing and embedding themselves in the communities, sharing ideas, as you mentioned, interacting on LinkedIn, finding yourself a mentor and building and wrapping yourself with a, community around yourself to build that confidence, to gain knowledge, and then tackle and build a discipline and habit can make a big difference. So you know brilliant. Thank you very much for your time, Lawrence. This is the series in breaking into cybersecurity. We covered a lot of topics, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Maris.